isn't bad. It's certainly not as bad as its cover, right? The cover is epically awful. We've talked about this in many ways, right? The cover is like so unbelievably bad that it just deserves talking about every time we see it. It's atrocious, and that it got greenlit is insane. It is reasonably woke in that it's overbalanced with a lot of female authority figures. Having said that, that's the only wokeness of it, and it's done very well, right? I think it's done quite well. But here's the real problem with this. This is not a first season of Morbius, right? This is like a season 5, right? This is a season when you want to start going in a new direction and try something different. See, here's the problem. It starts off in voiceover. You hear a little bit about Morbius. I don't think you actually hear him. Maybe a little bit in the whole disc, which is fair enough, right? If that's a creative choice, that's a creative choice. But like you hear about the legend of Morbius, about how there was a titanic political struggle within Gallifrey that turned into a civil war, and how Morbius was a charismatic leader that cared passionately, right, about his people and about his cause, right? And that sounds like a fabulous and fantastic and deeply interesting story. Right, it sounds a little bit like House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, that sort of thing. So there's a scope where they could do something really, really breathtaking. And once you know the character and you know the complexity of the character, you know how interesting the character is, you care about the character. I think Mad Men is such a fantastic example of that, right? It's an example of that you get to know the main character, Don Draper, so intimately well that it's so compelling, and and he does terrible things, like legitimately terrible things, and you understand and you sympathize with him, right? And that's the interesting, and that was the interesting thing, I think, with Game of Thrones. Like, there's nobody black and white. You have bad people and good people. What you sympathize, you're able to sympathize with everybody, pretty much, right? And so if you have a villain that you care for and you're sympathetic to, that makes him a much stronger villain, right? And then you're really, really interested in it. And again, this promise of a story was fantastic, right? Of like, this great Time Lord general and a civil war and strife and anarchy. All of it, it's how you could have really done something really great with this, right? Absolutely fantastic with it. But then, so this is what happens after that in a series. Like, well, how do you continue? Right? So this starts off, Mobius has been defeated and deposed and he's gone, right? So again, it sounds like, well, how do you continue? Right? And they found an interesting way to continue it. But like, you don't care as much because the character hasn't been built up. The world hasn't been built up. Now, the world they present is an interesting one, right? I don't want to have you think it's the world building as well. The world building is freaking excellent in this, right? The problem is there's not enough of me to latch on to care about, and I can't do these covers. I'm sorry, this cover plays when I'm on the Big Finish app. I can't do the cover. It gives me a headache. It's so incredibly bad, right? It really genuinely I think it's not Big Finish, please. I'm sorry. What do you want me to tell you? I've listened to this shit. I have to justify it some way. It's okay. So the basic story is this: so you have a young adherent of the Sisterhood of Karn, and she's there's a last time ship leaving Karn to head back to Gallifrey, and so it's a very strong analogy. They make it sound like an ancient sailing vessel, but it's sailing on the time winds. But you have a lot of like mum, you got all that seamanship thing going on, An old-fashioned Mexican standoff between the rabbi and the chat. I'm going to win, baby. What's this? So again, the world they build up is interesting. I like this sort of the Victorian punk. I don't know what it is. The sci-fi, I guess, steampunkness of it, right? Even though it's before Steve. It's before that. I don't know the sail power, the wind power punk of it, right? Where they it's very much like they're trapped on a boat together. The captain has this need for the elixir of life. And a stranger shows up, and she ends up having to share with him, which is like debilitates her. She gives a great performance, right? She's like this wizened old angry crone of a captain, which I really like, right? It actually really generally works. Now in the background, you have Morbius has survived somehow. You have prisoners in the hold. You have the ship sinking, not sinking, shrinking. You have the ship shrinking bit by bit because it's leaking dimensional whatever things, and the crew are becoming mutinous, right? Which is essentially the story of the whole thing. And you have this young, as I said, adherent assistant of Khan accompanying them. And again, I look at this cover and I go, no. So it's an interesting story, right? It really is an interesting little 3-disc story. It's not a season 1, right? This is a return of Morbius, right? This isn't like where you start with Morbius, right? So sadly, and again, Timothy West, not in it. Ridiculously so, right? So yeah, I'm not getting the second part, right? I am. And again, I can't do these covers. They're so epically awful, right? They really are so epically awful. Oh, it's such a mistake, right? I guess they put Tom Baker in it at the end. I guess they were going to do these as a series of box sets, right? 3-disc box sets, but they weren't selling. Yeah, I know it was going to have Tom Baker on the cover. And then they got the War Master. Do you have any information about the War Master? No. I like the War Master. Do we know who's writing it? How about that? No, we don't know anything about it. I need to know more, right? I need to know more, I'm afraid to say. Is it being recorded? I don't know. It's a shame because I really wanted to support this range, right? I really genuinely wanted to, but I just can't. Right, I mean, the bottom line, I just can't. And while the product itself isn't bad, I mean, that's the really frustrating thing about it. The product of itself isn't bad. It's just it's something that's standing on the shoulders of groundwork, and that groundwork never existed. Right, essentially. My name's Tzvi Lebetkin, the Rabbi from another planet. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring that little bell. Ring the little bell so you're notified when new videos drop.